There's a right way to create your Upwork title, and there's a wrong way to create your Upwork title. And in this video, I'm going to show you the right way to create your Upwork title so you can show up higher in the search rankings, get more invitations, and sign more clients on Upwork. My name is Nico Hessel, and I'm the founder of Upwork Outbound, and we've helped hundreds of freelancers sign high-paying clients on Upwork. And so with that being said, let's dive in. Your Upwork title has two main purposes. The first one is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's just to tell clients what you do. Right? Now, your title sits both at the top of your profile and in this little preview when you submit a proposal on Upwork. And so it's crucial that your title actually contains information that represents your services that you're offering on Upwork. That's the first purpose. The second purpose is to help you show up higher in the search rankings and get more invitations on Upwork. And I'm going to dive into my client account and show you this in just 1 second. But here's one example. You can see this is a screenshot from my client account. I looked up Google Ads. And you can see everybody who's showing up in these search rankings has either the words Google or the word ads in their title. And in most cases, they have both, right? You can see this guy, Muhammad H, has Google Ads in his title. This person, Yevon, has senior Google Ads in his title, right? You get the idea. And I'll dive into my client account and show you a couple more examples right now. So I'm in my client account and I just searched up a web developer looking for talent. And you can see everybody who's showing up in these search rankings, and I'm obviously on the first page, has the words web or developer, or in most cases, both in their title. You can see web developer, web developer, web developer, web developer, web developer, web developer, accessibility specialist, and web developer, right? You get the idea. Your title plays a massive role in determining whether or not you show up in the search rankings when a client searches for your services on Upwork. And obviously, if you can show up nice and high in these search rankings, like these guys are, you're gonna get way more invitations and you're gonna sign way more clients. And so this, showing up nice and high in the search rankings, is what we're gonna focus mainly on today. To have an optimized title and to make sure you are showing up nice and high in these search rankings on Upwork, you need to know 3 core principles of a winning Upwork title. Now, the first one is you don't wanna have any repeat words. That doesn't help you. Right? If you have the word SEO in your title 10 times, it's going to make no difference than just having the word SEO in your title 1 time, right? And so you can see a good example and a bad example here, right? Good example would be SEO, on-page, off-page blog writing, right? That's just a normal good example of a title. A bad example would be like SEO, on-page SEO, off-page SEO, right? Because you're wasting space and you're repeating words. Which brings me to number 2, right? Which is going to be maximizing the space. Right now, if we're repeating words, we're saying the word SEO in our title 3 times, like I already said, that's not going to help us. And we could put in other phrases that would help us show up higher in the search rankings, right? We have a 70 character limit for our title on Upwork, right? So you can see here, a good example, bad example, right? A bad example, you don't just want to have your title be UX UI designer. Right? Instead, a much better example would be UX UI designer, websites, mobile apps, branding, Figma, Adobe XD, right? And the last principle is we don't want to have filler words. So this kind of goes off of the first 2, of like no repeating words and really maximizing the space, right? A bad example with lots of filler words would be I am a Google Ads specialist and I also offer Facebook ads. Because nobody's going to be looking up and I also offer, right? All of these are just completely wasted words, right? A much better example would be Google Ads, Facebook advertising, and then, you've got your other words in the title, right? But you don't need to waste space on these filler words, all right? So now that you know these 3 core principles, let's dive into showing up higher in the search rankings. And so the way we're going to show up higher in the search rankings is to pack our title full of commonly searched up phrases on Upwork. Right? And so if we know that clients are searching up certain phrases to find our services, we want to pack those phrases into our title. All right? And so basically the way that I recommend people do this is put together a big list of 3 things. Number 1, the services you're offering. Number 2, the platforms that you work on. And number 3, the tools you use. All right? You're going to make a big list of all of these. I'm going to walk you through step by step how to do this in just a second here, give you some examples of this. But you're going to make a big list, and then at the end, I'm going to show you which of these words in this list you're actually going to want to choose to put in your title. All right. So another thing to note here, as I go through this, you should think of the different ways that you can phrase these things. Right now, it doesn't apply as much to like tools and platforms because those are fairly straightforward for the most part. There are some exceptions, but In particular to the services you're offering, there's oftentimes different ways to say the service. I'll give you a couple examples. Facebook ads and Facebook advertising, social media manager and content creator, right? GHL and go high level. That's one of the kind of the few platform and tool examples there. But if I type into Upwork GHL and then I type into Upwork go high level, I will get different searches, right? Both when I type in, that into the search bar looking for jobs, but also if I go into my client account and I type these two phrases into the search bar, I will get different lists of freelancers, right? So it's really important, again, to just be thinking through the different ways that you can phrase your services and tools and platforms when you're building this list, all right? So services, this should be pretty straightforward, right? There's probably a one or two main ways that people say your service, right? What the service is. It could be SEO, accounting, Google Ads, bookkeeping, web development, full stack development, social media manager. You get the idea. This part is typically pretty simple. Just put together a big list of as many, services as many phrases that represent your service as you can think of, right? And again, be thinking of different ways to phrase this, right? Like for Google Ads, obviously Google Ads is a way to say your service, but so is like PPC, and so is pay-per-click advertising, right? Start thinking outside the box. For social media management, there could be social media manager, and it could also be content creator, right? You get the idea. So that's the first list is services. And also you want to be thinking of like sub services. And so for example, if you offer SEO, right? SEO would be what I would call kind of the core service, but you could also offer on-page SEO and off-page SEO and blog writing and content writing and link building, right? These are all kind of what I would consider kind of sub services that all fall into the category of SEO. But you still want to write them down as kind of, separate services. You want to include all of them in this list of services. All right. A couple other examples for web development, right? You have front end development and back end development, right? For branding, you could also say logo design, right? These are kind of sub services. You want to include all these in your list of services. Next is tools and platforms. These can kind of get bunched together sometimes. It is kind of tricky to differentiate. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you include all of the tools and platforms that you use in this big list, right? So tools or platforms could be, like MailChimp, Figma, Django. If you are a web developer, it could be the languages that you code in, right? Any of the platforms or frameworks that you use, right? It could be Power BI, like QuickBooks, right? Hopefully you get the idea. And then same thing for the platforms, right? Especially if you're like a social media manager or like a video editor, right? Like platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, right? What are the platforms you manage social media pages on? But it's also applicable for lots of other services, right? Like web design, web development. You could have WordPress, you could have Wix. You get the idea, right? Cool. Now, again, want to quickly restate our goal. And now that you have this big list of tools, platforms, and services that you're offering, I'm going to show you how to choose which ones to actually put into your title. But again, I want to quickly restate the goal, which is that we are trying to pack our title full of as many commonly searched up phrases on Upwork as we possibly can. All right. And so with that being said, I like to use this framework when I teach people how to build their titles, right? And so that goes service, 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 and then tools and platforms, right? And each one I recommend just being separated by a vertical line. You could separate them also by, a slash, a dash, whatever, doesn't really matter, right? I'll also note that this is going to change depending on A, how many different services you're offering on Upwork, and B, what the service is, right? Because you might find if you are a web developer that there are tons of tools and platforms that, are very commonly searched up on Upwork that you want to include in your title. Whereas if you offer Google Ads, there's not really any platforms other than Google, but that would be included in the services phrase. And remember, we don't want to repeat words, right? So there's not really any other platforms. And maybe there's one tool like Google Analytics 4, but other than that, none that I can think of, right? And so like in this case, you would follow this framework, right? You'd be service, 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 and then a tool, right? Like you can see down here, Google Ads, pay-per-click advertising, PPC, GA4, right? Just a couple examples. And again, this is a loose framework. Don't feel like you absolutely have to have 3 service phrases and then one tool/platform phrase. Like this is, again, just kind of a general guidance. And then again, next, I'm going to show you exactly how to choose which words you actually want to put in this title, right? Which phrases, all right? And note, another thing real quick, the kind of average title that I see, again, we have a 70 character limit, so we can't go too crazy with this, but the average title that I see that is optimized has 4 or 5 different phrases in it, all right? So if you wrote down more phrases on your list than you have room for in your title, which all of you should have, right? Then you want to go through the following steps to basically determine which of these words do you put in your title. And so basically you're going to go to Upwork and you're going to search them all up, right? And you're going to see which terms and phrases lead to more jobs that you want to win. And you're going to use those in your title, right? So I'm going to go through an example here. So if I offered video editing, let's say, I might have put together a big list of services, and that might include the word video editing or the phrase video editing, right? Video editor, long form video editing, short form video editing, and ad creatives, right? This is just an example, right? And I might have put together a list of tools that included DaVinci, Final Cut Pro, CapCut, and Adobe Premiere Pro. And I might have put together a list of platforms that included Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and TikTok, right? This could be what my list looks like. Now, obviously, there's not enough room in our title to include all of these phrases. So now we have to start eliminating them. And so like I just mentioned, we would first want to search these phrases and see which of them lead to more jobs that we would want to win, right? Not just more jobs that we actually want to win, all right? And so let's say, for example, I searched up DaVinci on Upwork, right? And I saw that in the last 3 days, there's like only 1 or 2 jobs that I would actually want to win. Well, then obviously that's not going to be a very good keyword to put in my title, because if there's only 1 or 2 jobs that were posted in the last 3 days that I would want to win, then that tells me there are not very many clients who are searching up this, phrase DaVinci on Upwork, because there's not very many jobs that are, related to DaVinci on Upwork. And so I would eliminate that one, right? And let's say, maybe I search up the word video editor on Upwork, and I find that there are, in the last 3 days, there's been 35 jobs that were posted that are showing up that I would want to win on Upwork. Then I would say, well, this is probably going to be an awesome keyword to have, right? Now, obviously, I would go through and I would search the rest of these keywords before determining the ones that I want to put in the title. But if this one had like 30 or 40, and I know right off the top of my head, just based on doing this before, that video editor, is going to be a good keyword to have in my title. And after I searched up all of these phrases on Upwork, I would put the ones into my official title, right? I would put the ones into my title that resulted in the most jobs I want to fulfill, right? And so that might, again, look like video editor, long form editing, short form, YouTube, and Instagram Reels. Now, the really cool thing about this title as well is that if somebody looks up short form editor, I'm going to be covered, right? Because, the phrases don't have to be all like, word after word, right? If somebody looks up short form video editor, we will show up in these rankings. If somebody looks up YouTube video editor, we're going to show up. If somebody looks up, short form video or YouTube editor or Instagram Reels video editor, like we're going to show up for all of these, right? And so again, this is basically the framework that I use when I teach people how to create their titles and how to optimize their titles so that you can ultimately get more invitations. And I even have a couple different bonuses for you to wrap up this video. So number 1 is that if you have a ton of social proof, right? If you have a piece of social proof that is extremely compelling, then you can kind of sacrifice some of the like SEO component to your title, right? So you can sacrifice putting some keywords in your title, some commonly searched up phrases in your title. And instead of doing that, you can put in this kind of social proof phrase, right? And so I'm going to give you an example of this. Like if you have 15 years of experience, then, at the end of your title, you could write 15 years of experience or something along those lines, right? This is an example of someone who did a really nice job with this. This is Frank, right? And he's got Google Ads, AdWords expert, and then at the end, he says, former Google employee, right? That is super, super convincing. That is like, if I'm hiring someone to run my Google Ads, I want somebody who is a former Google employee. Like it is an awesome example of really strong social proof. And basically, the reason that you would put this, there's probably not anyone looking up former Google employee on Upwork. There's no clients that are going to be searching that up. But basically, the reason you would do this is because even if somebody looks up Google ads, you're going to show up because you have those words in your title, right? And if they see you're a former Google employee, then the likelihood that they click on your profile and invite you to a job is much higher. And so basically, what you're doing is you're gonna show up in less searches, but the searches that you do show up in, you're going to have a higher likelihood of getting invitations of signing clients, right? And so that's basically kind of the trade-off. If you do have a really convincing form of social proof, let's say you spent $100 million on ads, like that is really convincing. And so you might consider, again, putting that at the end of your title, like 100M spent or 100M in ad spend or spent on ads or whatever, right? Other little bonus I have for you is if you are not getting enough invitations, then number one, I highly recommend checking out my video on Upwork SEO. It's one of my most viewed videos on my channel, and it's helped me get quite a few invitations. I get about 66 in 90 days, which is pretty cool. And so that's the first thing. Second thing is kind of a little, this very simple trick that I see most people mess up is that if you're getting a lot of invitations that are irrelevant, or you're just not getting that many invitations, check your profile categories. So click on your Upwork profile picture in the top right corner, then click account settings, then click profile settings, and then scroll down and you'll see these little bubbles that represent basically your profile categories. Now, your profile categories play a large role in determining what clients and what searches Upwork shows your profile to. And so again, you want to make sure these are extremely accurate. And if you only want to have profile categories in your profile categories that are 100% representative of your service. So I'll give you a bad example. If you are let's say you do kind of, like full inclusive marketing, all inclusive marketing services, and you have the web development skill tag or rather profile category in your profile categories. But if somebody came to you and they asked you just to build them a landing page, or if they asked you to develop some kind of website, if you would say no, then obviously you don't want to have that profile category in your in your profile categories, right? And I know that sounds simple, but just make sure that your profile categories represent the services that you do all of the time for the vast majority of your clients. All right, I know it sounds simple, but just check it out. You'd be surprised as to how many people have a profile category in their profile categories that doesn't 100% represent them and their services. All right, and so those are the two bonuses. Again, if you are looking to get more invites, you want to get more invites on your on Upwork, check out this video on Upwork SEO, and I will see you there.